The moment I opened that certified letter, I knew something was wrong. The paper smelled like fresh ink and legal threats, and my hands felt tight around the envelope. The letter said I owed $47,000 in HOA fines. The problem was simple. I wasn't even in an HOA. I stood in my kitchen holding a hot mug of coffee. Steam rose into the quiet morning, and outside my window I saw her. Karen Whitmore, HOA president of Willowbrook Estates. She stood on her perfect green lawn across the creek, pointing at my house like she was signaling an attack. Her grass sparkled with tiny drops of morning dew, and I swear I saw a ruler in her back pocket. That woman measured grass like surgeons measure heartbeats. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the heat calm my chest. Lady, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Before I go deeper, I always ask this in my HOA videos. Where are you watching from? And if you've got a crazy HOA story, drop it below. I promise what happened to me is worse. My name is Garrett Mitchell. I bought my home 12 years ago, a 1970s ranch house sitting on 3 acres of old Hendricks farmland. Back then, this land was dirt, cows, and common sense. Willow Creek runs between my property and Willowbrook Estates. A real creek, moving water. A natural boundary nobody can argue with unless they're crazy. After 2 tours in Afghanistan, all I wanted was peace. I used my VA loan, bought the place, and built a workshop where the smell of pine sawdust mixes with WD-40 every morning. My teenage daughter Emma loves it out here. She catches tadpoles in the creek, sits on the porch in the evenings, and tells me this house feels like breathing room after years of tension. Then came Karen. Karen Whitmore is 52, drives a spotless white Lexus, and rules her HOA like she's queen of a kingdom nobody voted for. Her hair is always sprayed into place like plastic. Her pearls shine even in cloudy weather. And her husband Brad? County Planning Commissioner. That detail is important later. I still remember our first meeting. I was getting my mail when I heard the crunch of gravel under expensive heels. Karen marched toward me with her clipboard gripped like a weapon. The air smelled like her strong perfume mixed with morning grass. "Your workshop violates neighborhood standards," she said. No hello, no introduction, just pure Karen energy. I glanced at my workshop, then the creek, then her. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "I'm not in your HOA." Her smile tightened. "We'll see about that." That was 18 months ago. Every day after that felt like minor warfare. She started watching my house from her window, then from her backyard, then with binoculars. No joke. She'd show up every time I used a saw, every time someone visited me, every time Emma walked to the school bus. The final straw for Karen was Emma's 16th birthday party. A simple barbecue, kids laughing, music until 9:30 p.m., all legal under county rules. Karen called the police twice. Both times the officers said everything was fine. One of them even grabbed a burger on his way out. The next morning, Emma found the notice on my windshield. The paper felt heavy, like it wanted to punish me. Violations for my workshop, my fence, my gravel driveway, each one carrying a $500 fine. "Dad," Emma said, her voice tight, "this woman has lost her mind." Yeah, she had, and she was counting on me being like every family she'd bullied before. Pay the fines, tear everything down, stay quiet. But Karen had made one fatal mistake. She never checked the county records. My land wasn't just outside her HOA. It had been intentionally excluded when Willowbrook Estates was built. But people like Karen don't research, they attack. I poured another cup of coffee that morning and walked to the fence line. The air was cool, the creek bubbling softly. Across the water, Karen stood with her arms crossed, looking at my house like it personally offended her. "You just declared war on the wrong veteran," I said into the morning air. A few days later, her certified violation packet arrived. Glossy paper, color photos, legal threats stacked on top of each other like she was trying to bury me under them. But I wasn't the one who should have been scared. At the county courthouse, the smell of old paper and dusty binders filled the archives room. A clerk named Dorothy, with big round glasses and a calm voice, helped me pull my deed and the original 1970 survey. The truth was right there in clean black ink. My property predated her neighborhood by 40 years. The creek was a permanent boundary, and my address was nowhere near their jurisdiction. When I called the HOA management office, the receptionist sounded bored when she told me, "Sir, if you're not in our database, you're not in our HOA." So why was Karen attacking me? I'd soon find out. And when the truth surfaced, it wouldn't just end her lawsuit, it would end her entire HOA. For good. The morning after the courthouse visit, I heard the unmistakable sound of Karen Whitmore's rage, fast, sharp footsteps on gravel. When I opened my door, she stood there with her brother-in-law Rick, a man who smelled like cheap cologne and mistakes. He wore an orange vest, like he thought it made him an authority figure. Karen didn't say hello. She never did. "We're here to reestablish proper boundary lines," she declared, thrusting her chin up. Her voice sounded tight, like she was forcing confidence she didn't have. The evening sun caught the tension in her jaw, and even her pearls seemed angry. Rick held a tape measure like a sword. The air smelled like cut grass and Karen's lavender perfume, which somehow always came off aggressive. "Your creek has shifted," Karen said, "meaning your workshop is now partially in Willowbrook Estates." I held up my certified county survey, the paper warm from my car's dashboard. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "water doesn't move property lines." Her face flushed bright red. "We'll see what my attorney says about that." Then they left, at least physically. Mentally, Karen didn't leave anything alone. 2 days later, Mrs. Patterson waved me over to her porch. She's 83, bakes cookies that smell like cinnamon heaven, and remembers every piece of neighborhood history like she's the local historian. Her house always smells like warm vanilla and old books. "I've been watching that woman trouble folks for years," she said, pouring me sweet tea. "Sit down, honey, you need to hear this." She slid over a faded manila envelope. Inside were old subdivision maps, yellowed and brittle. She tapped the paper with a slow, steady finger. "Your property was excluded from the development on purpose," she said. "Environmental concerns, creek flood zone." She sipped her tea. "But Brad got them to approve the rest anyway. He made a fortune off those houses." Everything clicked. That wasn't just conflict of interest, that was motive. Karen wasn't just mistaken, she was weaponizing her HOA to protect a financial empire built on shaky ground. Later that week, the next violation notice appeared. This one accused me of creating a nuisance that harmed community property values. The paper felt almost oily, like it had too much toner. Karen had escalated from fines to threats, including liens and foreclosure. She also hired a law firm whose letters smelled like intimidating money. But here's the beauty of narcissists. They create their own downfall. Karen's harassment pushed other families to finally speak up. The Kowalskis found me in the grocery store, their little boy holding a cereal box while his mom whispered like we were planning a rebellion. "She made us tear down our swing set," she said it harmed community aesthetics, cost us $8,000. Then came the Rodriguezes. They had moved away after Karen threatened their employer when they questioned a fine. Mrs. Patterson knew everything, and every story made the picture clearer. Karen targeted working families, people she assumed wouldn't fight back. She thought I was one of them. She really should have checked my background. Emma, now very aware of the drama, pushed her hair behind her ear at breakfast and said, "Dad, this woman is insane. She's everywhere." She was right. Just that week, my security camera caught Rick creeping around the edge of my property at dawn. He placed orange survey stakes in the ground like a sneaky raccoon with bad intentions. He kept glancing around nervously, wiping sweat from his forehead as if the early morning chill wasn't even there. When I confronted him later, he stammered, "Just doing preliminary measurements," and ran off so fast he left a skid mark in the gravel. But the most chilling moment was seeing Karen parked near the creek bridge, holding a telephoto lens bigger than her ego. She was taking pictures of our house at 7:10 a.m. The engine of her Lexus hummed quietly, and the cold morning air made little clouds around her mouth as she muttered into her phone. Emma saw it too. "Dad, this is creepy," she whispered. Her fingers shook slightly as she lifted her backpack onto her shoulder before school. That was the moment something changed in me. I wasn't just annoyed anymore. I wasn't just frustrated. I was done. My old platoon sergeant used to say, "Let crazy folks talk long enough and they'll hang themselves with their own words." He was right. The Facebook group, Willowbrook Neighbors, turned into a digital war zone. Karen's supporters posted nonsense about community standards and property values. But others, people who'd been quiet for years, finally stepped up with their own stories of harassment. And then came the bombshell. Mrs. Patterson, sipping peppermint tea like she was delivering gossip from heaven, said, "Honey, I've been recording HOA meetings for years. Just in case." She pulled out a cardboard box filled with old cassette tapes. The labels were handwritten in neat cursive. HOA meeting, March 2022, HOA board, June 2022, annual review, 2021. "You might want to listen to these." We did. Karen had recorded her own downfall without realizing it. On one tape she said, "That contractor isn't technically in our jurisdiction, but he'll never fight us. Working people can't afford lawyers." On another she said, "Brad says we can't force him to join, but what's he going to do? Hire an attorney?" She wasn't enforcing rules. She was running a suburban protection racket. By the time I finished listening to all of it, I knew one thing. This wasn't about violations. This was a criminal conspiracy hiding behind clipped lawns and matching mailboxes. And I had all the proof I needed. The day the sheriff knocked on my door, the morning air smelled like wet dirt and pine from the night's drizzle. His boots thudded on my porch, steady and calm. When he handed me the thick envelope, I felt the weight through the cardboard. It wasn't just paper, it was Karen's nuclear option, a $47,000 lawsuit. She claimed I had implied HOA membership by simply existing within 5 miles of her subdivision. She wanted an injunction to stop all unauthorized activity, meaning my workshop, my driveway, even my fence. She demanded legal fees that could buy a used truck. I drove straight to my attorney, Janet Reeves. Her office always smelled like leather-bound books and black coffee. And when she read through the lawsuit, her eyes narrowed like she was facing down a bully on a playground. "Garrett," she said, voice tight with controlled anger, "this woman just made the biggest mistake of her life. This isn't a property dispute anymore. This is harassment, business interference, and fraud." Then Janet found something worse. Karen had done this before, 6 times. 3 families moved away rather than fight. 1 lost their home. Karen wasn't just an annoying neighbor. She was a serial predator armed with a clipboard. As if on cue, Karen launched a PR campaign. Local Channel 7 aired a dramatic story about a rogue contractor ruining a peaceful neighborhood. Karen posed next to her Lexus wearing pearls and a tragic expression, pointing at my house like it was a chemical plant. They never contacted me for comment because Karen told them I wouldn't talk, which was a lie. Nobody had tried. But her PR stunt backfired. Emma's friend Madison, sharp as a tack, always tapping her foot when nervous, became an unexpected spy. During a sleepover, she overheard Karen bragging during book club about finally getting rid of that contractor and his obnoxious daughter. Madison recorded everything. Meanwhile, Karen escalated from harassment to sabotage. One morning, I found roofing nails scattered across my driveway like metallic landmines, their sharp smell mixed with the cold air as Emma and I picked them up. Another day, someone keyed "move" into Emma's car door in the school parking lot. Watching my daughter's face crumple as she traced the scratch made something hard settle in my gut. This wasn't just petty neighbor drama. This was an attack on my family. That's when I moved Emma to stay with Mrs. Patterson for a while. The old woman hugged her tight, smelling of vanilla and soft sweaters, and promised she'd be safe. Karen kept escalating. Someone cut my workshop's power line at 3 a.m. The burnt plastic smell hit me before I even reached the breaker box. My security camera caught the silhouette of a man running away. If I hadn't noticed it early, my shop could have burned down. County Inspector Phillips showed up again, shaking his head. "Mr. Mitchell, your place is cleaner than half the commercial shops I inspect. Whoever's reporting you is wasting everyone's time." Finally, we had enough evidence to crush Karen completely. Janet gathered everything into what she called the war file. The tapes, the sabotage, the forged documents, the environmental studies, the survey, the secret recording of Karen admitting she targeted families. Our next move was to bring everything to the County Planning Commission. That night, the meeting room buzzed with voices. People smelled of nervous sweat and cheap coffee. Folding chairs scraped on the floor. Cameras clicked. Sarah Morgan, the reporter, stood ready with her microphone. Karen came in wearing a navy suit and a smile stretched too thin. She carried a binder stuffed with papers and brought 3 supporters who looked like they regretted it already. Her PowerPoint had dramatic red arrows pointing at my workshop with words like property value threat and community hazard. When it was my turn, I stayed calm. I showed the 1970 property deed, the certified survey, the exclusion map, the environmental study. Then we played Mrs. Patterson's tape. The sound crackled as Karen's voice filled the room. "That contractor isn't in our jurisdiction, but he'll never fight us. Working people can't afford lawyers." Karen froze. All the color drained from her cheeks. The handwriting expert explained how the HOA incorporation documents were forged 6 months after the man supposedly signed them had died. People gasped. Then the HOA management company's representative stood and said, "We're terminating Willowbrook's contract immediately due to financial misconduct." Karen snapped. She jumped up, shouting that everyone was lying. Her voice cracked. She accused the commission of being corrupt. She pointed at me, screaming about dangerous veterans. Security had to escort her out as she kicked and yelled. The commission's vote was unanimous. Willowbrook Estates HOA was dissolved on the spot. All fines, void. All liens, illegal. All complaints, dismissed. Criminal charges, forwarded to the district attorney. We didn't just win. We exposed a decade of corruption. Neighbors gathered outside in the warm night air. Someone fired up a grill. Mrs. Patterson handed out cookies. Kids played near the creek. The smell of barbecue smoke mixed with laughter. For the first time in 18 months, I felt peace. 6 months later, Karen was arrested for fraud and harassment. Brad lost his job and his company collapsed. Their house went into foreclosure. I received settlement money big enough for Emma's college. The neighborhood rebuilt itself without an HOA. Now, the creek runs clean. Kids play freely. Nobody measures grass. And every year we hold Willow Creek Day, celebrating the downfall of the county's worst HOA tyrant. Sometimes standing up to a bully doesn't just save you, it saves everyone they've ever hurt.